Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Daniel Rodríguez Barrón, soy escritor mexicano. Les agradezco mucho que nos estén acompañando ahora mismo en estas charlas que tenemos entre el Grupo Planeta y desde luego la FIL de Guadalajara. Para mí es un honor charlar con Camilla Läckberg, la reina de las novelas criminales. Le agradezco muchísimo a Camila que esté con nosotros esta tarde. Gracias, Camila.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Me gustaría comenzar, antes de entrar realmente en la trama de la novela. Vamos a tener un tiempo un poco largo y entonces vamos a disfrutar esta charla. Me gustaría empezar por preguntarte por qué los países nórdicos se han convertido en un polo, digamos, de atracción en lo que se refiere a la novela negra. Si hay alguna razón sociológica, que no sea, digamos, editorial, por la cual estos países se han convertido en un punto de atracción de esta clase de novelas.
I think there are several factors. One is the climate, I think, the long, cold, dark winters, which leaves much for the imagination to write about. I also think that we have, I'm going to quote a colleague of mine, Lisa Marklund. She said that you have to have a blank canvas to be able to write about murders and horrible things like that. In countries with an ongoing war, for example, there's not as much interest in writing stories about, everyday murders, or you have to have a special kind of society. And the Scandinavian society is quite a safe society. So I think the crime stories are the ghost stories that we tell around the campfire. And I also think that when it comes to Nordic crime, Nordic noir, we were lucky enough to have a fantastic couple that started writing crime and totally changed the name of the game and the genre in the 80s. And they have very difficult names to pronounce. Sjöwall Wahlöö, the Martin Beck stories. And they really upped the game and raised the bar of writing crime stories and brought it into literature. It was not something you read under the covers anymore. It was brought into the world of literature. So I think all of those factors combined have created the fantastic success of Scandinavian noir, Nordic noir.
Entonces hay digamos, una doble relación, la idea de que es una sociedad más igualitaria y que quizás entonces los crímenes resultan ser más escandalosos por eso mismo, y la otra porque quizás los escritores comenzaron a elevar el género policíaco. Es decir, era un género bastante popular que uno leía, como acabas muy bien de decir, casi con vergüenza, y se convirtió en gran literatura. ¿Es así?
Yes, and we have been fortunate enough to have a long line of fantastic authors who decided to write crime. One name, for example, is Henning Mankell, who also contributed to raising the respect for the crime genre. So I think it's very also much due to the fact that we've had some fantastic literary writers who decided to take on crime writing.
¿Es un entretenimiento o es una crítica a la sociedad contemporánea? No solo a aquella donde tú habitas, sino a la sociedad en general.
A lot of crime writers, authors have had an agenda, and they've been very outspoken with the agenda they've had with what topic in society they want to enlighten with their crime writing. I kind of started out going the other way. I've always, with vigilance, said that I write primarily to entertain. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's nothing to be ashamed of. So I've always said that I do not have a topic. I do not have criticism of society. But that being said, I realized through the years, and I've gotten older and wiser and more experienced as well, and more aware of what goes on in the world and the society around me, I realized it's very hard to write books in a vacuum, in nothingness. Of course, I write about the things that upset me, that angers me, that gets me passionate. So we all include that in our books.
Claro. Hay una necesidad también a veces de ocultar esta idea de que uno quiere entretener con lo que escribe. Parece como si fuera algo
Yeah.
vergonzoso, como si el entretenimiento fuera un asunto de la televisión o de las series y no tuviera que ver con el libro. Sin embargo, tú lo llevas muy bien a cabo, te permite divertirte, súper
Yeah.
entretenido lo que leí anoche de un solo tirón, pero al mismo tiempo sí haces esa crítica en específico, ¿no? Entonces, yo te quería preguntar, está enmarcado el libro claramente, lo citas, en el Me Too. ¿Qué te interesa del Me Too antes de entrar en la novela? ¿Qué te interesa de
I
este
think the Me
movimiento?
Too movement happened right around the same time as I had my own awakening about women's conditions in the world. And I think that also is combined with, I mean, I turned 40, which had a great impact on me, on the way I view the world. And my oldest daughter turned 16 and is, approaching, entering the real world. So I started seeing the world with her eyes, the world she's going to enter into. And I realized that, oh my God, my daughter does not have the same possibilities as my sons do. I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And I mean, even in Sweden, everyone thinks we're totally, totally equal. No, 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 no. Even in Sweden, my sons have a lot of privileges just because they're boys, men.
Uno pensaría claramente que en Suecia uno tendría o podría ver estos términos de igualdad muy claramente. Sin embargo, parece ser que no, por lo que leo en Mujeres que no perdonan. Uno creería que la tradición, no sé si te interese o quizás haya algo que ver en la cultura nórdica que Ibsen con las mujeres de Casa de Muñecas y con Hedda Gabler hubiera empezado una suerte como de protofeminismo, no sé si ese sería el término correcto, y quizás uno imagina desde acá, desde América, desde nuestros países que apenas están avanzando en ese tema, que ustedes estaban mucho más avanzados, pero parece ser que tienen un poco los mismos problemas.
Yeah, I would say that Sweden is more equal than most countries in the world. I would definitely, on a scale, I would say that Sweden is more equal, but we're far, far from equal. We have a world that is built on men's wants, needs, desires, wishes, rules. It doesn't matter if you're in Sweden, if you're in Mexico, you're in France, you're in the United States. It's a man's world, and women are starting to react to that because we're getting the bad bargaining. We have gotten more rights. We have the right to be in the workforce, but we are not at the same rate being able to let go of the household chores. We're still supposed to do most of the work at home and take the most care of the children, but at the same time perform as good or probably better than men. So we're getting the bad end of the stick. And when you speak of Ibsen, the interesting thing is that when I was a teenager and I was in a gymnasium, and that's after high school, before university, we had essay writings, of course, as you do in all schools. And we had a free essay writing. We could choose to write at this particular instant what we wanted. And I had just read A Doll's House. Is that the English title? By Ibsen. And I was so intrigued by that. But the teenage me, the 16-year-old me, decided to write what happened. The sequel. What happened after she leaves? What happened? And in my story, it was a short story. It was only a few pages. In my story, she returns. She goes back. because she realizes that there's no place in the world for her. She has no choice but to return to the cage she just escaped. And that is very interesting now for me, who's 46, to read that and see what my view of the world was. In my eyes, she was trapped. She could not leave.
Eso no lo hubieran pensado jamás las mujeres que no perdonan, el tener que regresar a casa porque no se sienten seguras en el mundo o porque les da miedo o porque no encuentran posibilidades. Quiere decir que ha pasado un largo trecho en tu ideología. Bueno, me gustaría contarte que en México, y es una de las preguntas que quiero hacerte, en México también el movimiento Me Too ha tenido mucha repercusión. El movimiento feminista tiene un desarrollo bastante amplio, pero al mismo tiempo ha sido tristemente criminalizado. En los últimos días, en Cancún, una protesta feminista ha sido dispersada a balazos. ¿Por qué tememos tanto ese cambio? Esa es mi pregunta. ¿Por qué tenemos miedo de que las mujeres tomen el poder o se conviertan en conductoras de sí mismas, de su propia voluntad y de sus propios derechos? ¿Qué es lo que tememos?
I don't think this is a mystery at all. I mean, when in the history of humanity has someone with power voluntarily relinquished that power? The ones who have the power will do everything they can to keep that power. And it's the same thing if you're a man or if you're Caucasian, or if, it doesn't, or if it's a country, or if you're Louis XIV. I mean, probably Louis XIV also said that this revolution went too far. I mean, the people in power always, because that's what you hear also here in Sweden and Scandinavia now, well, the whole Me Too thing has gone too far. The people in power who are about to lose some of that power will always think that the revolution has gone too far, and they will defend it with every means they have. So to me, it's not a mystery.
Entremos a mujeres que no perdonan. Hay una tradición, se trata sobre la justicia, sobre la venganza. Sería mi primera pregunta. ¿Justicia o venganza?
I think it's all about that. And when you talk about vengeance and revenge, again, we're talking about power. We always come back to power. When someone does something to you, they take power from you. And when you take revenge, you take back some of that power. And that's something that has always intrigued me. And I mean, mankind has always been intrigued by this. We have the stories about revenge and vengeance already in the Bible, probably before that. I mean, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. There's tons of stories about revenge in the Bible. And so it's something that is sometimes even the fantasy about power can make you feel a little bit better, even if you don't do the things you fantasize about. It's a bit cathartic to actually fantasize about getting back at someone.
Me gusta que hayas citado a la Biblia porque una de las cosas que pensaba mientras leía la novela es que hay una gran tradición de venganza femenina. Los griegos está Medea, está Clitemnestra y está Judith, por ejemplo, en la Biblia. Sin embargo, ¿qué diferencia encuentras entre estas venganzas de la antigüedad, digamos, de la literatura antigua frente a las venganzas de la literatura contemporánea?
I mean, of course, the stories have adapted to society, but we do still see the kind of revenge in modern society that you see. I mean, we see the Medea stories. We see the mothers killing their children or the fathers killing their children. We had a case in Sweden with a father who burnt down the house with his 3 children in it and texted his soon to be ex-wife, like, now I got you. So we still, unfortunately, have these Stone Age stories, but of course they've also adapted to modern society. I've written a book, well, 2 books actually, about a character named Faye, Golden Cage and Wings of Silver, and she goes the corporate way, you know, destroying through taking over business, the dynasty, the Dallas version of hostile takeovers. So you have everything from that to, you know, gunpoint, murdering someone as a revenge, and everything in between.
Tenemos a 3 protagonistas, Victoria, Brigitta y Ingrid. Tenemos a 3 protagonistas a lo largo de la novela que son diferentes, tienen diferencias en edades, tienen diferencias incluso, yo diría, culturales. Una de ellas es una periodista que me parece que es casi el centro de la trama, pero ¿por qué elegiste a estas mujeres? ¿Cómo creas estos personajes?
Well, it was very deliberate that I made them very, very different, because my whole point was that sometimes we get this stereotypical idea of which woman who is subject to being, put down by a man. And we don't think that I would never be in that situation, or someone like that would never be in this situation. We have the situation where you have like upper class people and you think everything looks so nice on the outside, and nothing like that would ever go on in nice families like that. The thing is that spousal abuse, for example, happens in all kinds of socio-economic family status. I mean, it's upper class, it's lower class, it's middle class, it's poor, it's rich, it's educated, non-educated. It's very, non-racial that way. It doesn't feel any, race or gender, or, I mean, well, it's mostly men who are the abusers, but so gender was the wrong choice of word, but it really cuts through everything. And that was a very, very important point for me.
Sí, a mí también me lo pareció y me gustó mucho, porque una de las cosas que se hace para desdeñar o para disminuir la fuerza del movimiento feminista, es decir, esto solo ocurre en las clases bajas. Nunca va a ocurrir en ningún otro espacio, nunca va a ocurrir con una mujer letrada, con una mujer escritora, con una mujer periodista. Eso no va a ocurrir jamás. Y esa es en realidad una forma como de desarmar el movimiento y de quitarle importancia. Y tú lo que haces es justo intentar que estas mujeres sean estudiadas, sean de una clase social en donde idealmente estas cosas no pasarían. Eso te permite, además, digamos, enganchar al lector.
I do think it helps me engage the reader, because you always also have this recognition that you're able to put yourself in the shoes of the character. It's not us and them. And another point I want to make with these women is that there's this wrong notion that it's only weak women who are subject to abusers. And, people say things like, oh, but why didn't she just leave? They do not understand the mechanism at all. And very, very strong women have been caught up in abusive relationships. It doesn't have anything to do with strength or character. It's a very sinister way of, picking someone apart and putting someone down. That happens often over years. And that was also a very, very important point for me to make.
Estamos hablando de los personajes femeninos, pero también es muy interesante los personajes masculinos, porque está el típico patán borracho, pero al mismo tiempo el abusador puede ser el periodista que es director de un periódico y que debería tener todas las herramientas para entender este nuevo mundo del Me Too, este nuevo feminismo, y sin embargo no lo hace. También pensaste muy bien, supongo, estos caracteres masculinos.
Yeah. Also, another point I wanted to make, that because you often also hear that, oh, but he seems such a nice guy, he could never have done that. It's not about being smart. It's not about being educated. Educated men beat their spouses. Smart men beat their spouses. men who can be good fathers and nice with friends and still beat their spouse. You have to make people understand that people can have two thoughts in the head at the same time. And again, it's about power. It's not about smart education, money, whatever. It's about power. Some people just, for whatever reason, from their childhood or just being born a certain way, we don't know yet, just, get a kick out of having power over someone. It makes them feel more empowered and strong and important.
Y supongo que esto se subraya, esta necesidad de poder, quiero decir, se subraya frente a estos movimientos porque precisamente, aparentemente, o en unos casos, por ejemplo, en el trabajo, en la oficina, no aparentemente, sino realmente, estamos perdiendo lugares, posiciones de poder los hombres, y quizás entonces la violencia vuelve a ser una forma en la que respondemos automáticamente, ¿no es así?
Yeah.
Estos personajes.
It's a lashing out. It's like when you take a favorite toy from a child and he lashes out and gets angry. I do think there's a lot of that kind of reaction, that men feel that they're losing their place of being the man and being in power, and feel castrated by the new world that is coming. And I think also we have a generation shift. I think and hope we will see a big difference when the next generation men are brought up in the world, because they are being raised now by women who are more, taking over the world. I have an 18-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I think, I do have an important job in raising my daughters as strong women. I have I think, even more important task in raising my boys to be fantastic, empathetic, generous, nice men.
¿Estamos viendo entonces la última generación de abusadores o es demasiado wishful thinking?
I think abuse is always going to be there. I think we're never, ever going to get rid of that. It seems to be very deep in our human reactions. And as a stereotype, men turn their anger outwards and women turn their anger inwards. And that's part of human nature, but it poses a much more important task on society. I'm a firm believer, for example, in giving women who are abused much more support from the state and the police. It's pretty bad today. They don't get much help. And also, I believe in rougher punishments for acts like that, because if they don't listen to, what's right from inside, we have to show them from the outside to scare them to not commit these acts.
Claro. Sin embargo, también lo que muestras en esta novela es que, si bien no se puede confiar, digamos, en el sistema, cuando ellas hablan de abuso o cuando ellas hablan de sus problemas, lo que sí se puede confiar es en esta sororidad. Es decir, entre ellas se ayudan y entre ellas tratan de resolver, en este caso lo resuelven bastante bien, resuelven muy bien los problemas. ¿Existe esta sororidad dentro del ambiente en el que te desarrollas? ¿La encontraste ahí antes de encontrarla en el libro?
Yes, I have to say that I've experienced both, and I'm experiencing both. I have, through my life, become lucky enough to surround myself with fantastic women who empower me, who support me, who cheer me on, who help me. And I've kind of collected them through the years. I've picked the good ones. So today I have a fantastic, crew of women around me that I think is amazing. But I've also have the biggest amount of criticism I've received. Mostly since I became a mother and a public figure for the first time for 18 years ago. I had my first child 18 years ago, and I also started a blog, and I've been a social media. I've had a social media presence, so I've been able to be reached by criticism. And I would would say to 99%, it's been women who's been criticizing me. From everything to what I do as a mother, to how I dress, to my weight, to how much I work, how much I don't. I mean, it's mostly women. And that's one of the points why I write so much about it, because it fascinates me. We are our own worst enemies. We are absolutely our own worst enemies. We spend so much time guarding our positions to other women, to gossiping, to talking crap behind the back, to not helping each other. Instead, we're competing with each other. And I think it's sad and it needs to change.
Ojalá cambie. Sin embargo, estas mujeres deciden llevar a cabo, deciden liberarse unas a otras. ¿Cómo se planea el crimen perfecto? Narrativamente hablando, por supuesto. Existe una... Adelante, perdón.
No, I think that in every book, the crime kind of blends with the characters. So I usually create the characters first, and then the nature of the crime comes quite naturally. But also, I've got a big database to pick from. I'm a huge crime nerd. I read, and ever since I was a child, I read so much about murder cases, murderers, serial killers, psychopaths, profiling, forensic medicine. I mean, and the first time I came to, I'll never forget the book fair in Guadalajara, for example, because I don't remember now quite which year I was there. It's been quite a few years. But the first thing they told me the night before I was going into the book fair, they said it, oh, last year they placed, I think it was like 8 or 10 bodies without heads outside the entrance. And the proper response would be, oh my God, if you're a crime writer, it's like, tell me more. So we are kind of drawn to everything horrible and dark and crime. So I'm not very much a nerd when it comes to that. So I've got a lot of experience from different murder cases.
Claro. Decías hace un momento, primero planeo los personajes. ¿Cómo los planeas? ¿Escribes una gran biografía? ¿Les creas un montón de situaciones que quizás no están en la novela? ¿Cómo es esa planeación de los personajes?
I'm a very disorganized writer compared to a lot of my colleagues. I mean, I'm quite close friends with a lot of the Swedish crime writers, so we often talk about the various methods that we work with, and they are all very organized. They have post-it notes of the whole book. They have long, several sheets of paper up and down with where they have interviewed their characters before they start writing about them. They know their favorite movie, what kind of shoes they wear. I just kind of start writing on the first page, and then I keep writing until the book is finished. I write chronologically. When I start, I know maybe 2% of the book. And so I kind of, this is going to sound very new age, but I kind of let the characters introduce themselves to me. So they usually come quite clearly to me when I start writing about them. It's like, here I am, this is me.
Entonces, ¿también te sorprendes de lo que hacen cuando llevan a cabo estos crímenes?
Sometimes they can surprise me. Most of the time, not. Most of the time, I'm in control, or I'm God, as I like to say. But all authors have a God complex. It's kind of what we do. We create universes. But yes, sometimes you have those magical moments where it feels like someone else is taking over the writing, or it feels like someone else is standing behind your shoulder and dictate for you what's going to happen. I know that, logically, it's probably that subconsciously I've already solved the problems and I already know subconsciously what's going to happen. But anyway, that feeling is absolutely amazing. So yes, sometimes they do surprise me.
Estas mujeres planean librarse unas a otras, es decir, cometer un crimen en favor de las otras. Me hizo recordar, no sé si lo tenías en mente mientras lo escribías, a Patricia Highsmith y Extraños en un tren, en donde dos desconocidos tratan de intercambiar crímenes. Sin embargo, aquí no solo son dos desconocidos, sino tienen, digamos, objetivos muy precisos, que es aquel que abusa de estas esposas. Eh, la,
Yeah.
¿La revisaste, la leíste? Me refiero a Patricia Highsmith, o no
Yeah, I've
necesariamente
read
la
it
tenías.
many, many years ago, and I think also Agatha Christie Murder on the Orient Express is a bit of the same. So it's a theme that always repeats but I've actually thought it is a very, very good way to commit a crime, and I'm kind of surprised that we don't have more real, actual cases where this happened, because where people exchanged murders with each other, because 90% of all murders are committed by someone in the near vicinity of the victim. I mean, the statistics are that high. So the police will always start looking first at the family and the people, the husband or the spouse or the people around them. So by distancing yourself and exchanging murder with someone else is actually quite a good idea, but it doesn't happen that often in real life.
Es una lástima. Pero, ¿a qué se deberá? ¿A que es muy
I don't
poco
want to give
probable?
anyone any ideas, though.
Eh, eh, bueno, déjame preguntarte, ahorita que acabas de decir eso, déjame preguntarte, ¿hay alguien que haya tomado alguna idea o que haya sabido de alguien que diga, oh, después de leer tu novela, pensé seriamente en matar a alguien?
No, I really, really hope not. And I have gotten the question through the years, of course, that aren't you afraid that you're going to inspire someone to do it? And I mean, you always have the Catcher in the Rye story with John Lennon in the back of your head if you're a writer. But I don't think, if people are that cuckoo, I mean, he would probably have been able to pick up a cornflakes package and read the instructions to kill John Lennon on the back of it. So it hasn't anything to do with the book, really. A person like that would do it anyway. So, but I know that a lot of criminals watch a lot of like forensic shows and CSI, and they have actually, unfortunately, gotten a lot better at thinking of these things with leaving a DNA trace, etc. etc. So that has actually happened, that they are watching true crime shows or forensic shows to learn what not to do.
¿Tú crees que también esta clase de novelas cumple un sueño soterrado del propio autor de poder llevar a cabo estos crímenes, aunque sea, por supuesto, en el papel y no estamos tan locos para llevarlos a la realidad, pero sin duda para llevarlos al papel sí se necesita tener un poco de oscuridad dentro?
I actually believe that all humans are capable of killing someone else. I think we're not far. We're just 1 second away from being cave people still. There's a very, very thin coating of, social appropriateness in our society. For example, if someone threatened the lives of my children, I would absolutely be able to kill that person. So I have it in me as well. Or if my life was threatened, of course, I would try to kill the other person if he tried to kill me. So that's what I mean by saying that we all have it in us. We're all able to kill someone else. It's just we have different levels of thresholds. I mean, some people would kill for money, some people would kill for love, etc., etc., and some people would only kill if their life is threatened. But that's why I think psychopaths are so interesting, because it's quite a known phenomenon. It's statistically and not that uncommon. Scientists say that about 0.5% of regular, population are what is defined as a psychopath, someone who does not feel empathy or feel feelings. They just imitate how they see other people react. And that's interesting, because if you don't feel any remorse, if you don't feel any empathy, it's much more easy to kill someone. So that's one of my fascinating topics that I love to talk about and read about. And yeah.
Justo decías hace un momento que parece raro que no se mate más utilizando este método de los desconocidos que intercambian objetivos. Y supongo que tiene que ver por el hecho de que hay que tener una gran confianza en la otra persona, no solo de que de verdad vaya y mate el objetivo que tú has decidido, sino una especie hasta casi como de intimidad, de cercanía. Me pregunto si tu novela al final, prácticamente el capítulo final, hay una especie como de reconstrucción de esa amistad entre estas mujeres que no se conocían, pero que finalmente se construye la amistad a partir de eso. También querías decir eso, que había,
Of course,
que
that's a bond that they share, and it's a common experience that ties them together. So I do have a picture in my head of them, becoming friends. I see them kind of like the Madras Sex and the City girls, sipping their cocktails and enjoying life, and yeah.
Así me las imaginé justo en la página final, que ya estaban disfrutando su vida. Pero esto anima, digamos, un poco a los lectores no a cometer el crimen, sino a sentir que pueden tener una relación amistosa con otros que han sufrido abuso.
Yeah.
Y adelante.
Yes, I mean, of course, when you write a crime novel or you write about revenge, for example, I mean, I don't literally mean that people should kill off their abusive husbands and do it, bond with other women to do it. It's symbolical, but my hope is when you read it, is that you will feel empowerment. It's to feel that I can take the power over my own life. I can do something about my situation, because it's a hopelessness that keeps us trapped in a situation. If we feel we cannot leave, we're stuck in our hopelessness. So empowerment is something that, apart from also being entertained, but if there's a feeling I would like the reader to take away, is that, yeah, you go girls, and I can do this, and I can, yeah. So it's more about that than literally killing someone.
Go Girls. ¿Estás pensando en que tus lectores son predominantemente lectoras o también tenemos cabida los lectores en las novelas de Camilla Läckberg?
I was very, very surprised when I started writing. I actually thought I wrote for a mainly female audience, but to my big surprise, I have more male readers than I had ever thought I would have. And I'm quite surprised by that. I'm very, very surprised by that. But I think I see that as a very good thing, because I do write a lot from women's perspective of how we view the world and what the world is like for us. So I'm thinking that maybe I could get, at least one guy to think that, okay, I think I need to change something about the way I treat my wife or view the family dynamic or something like that. If you can reach just one person, I mean, that's something fantastic.
¿Algún hombre se ha acercado a decirte, yo la leí, me gustó muchísimo y he pensado sobre lo que has escrito? ¿O son casi siempre mujeres?
No, when I do signings, I would say it's like 1/3 men and 2/3 women standing in line. I even have a Spanish guy who's tattooed my name on his neck that shows up every time I'm signing in Madrid. He's very nice though, but he's got Camilla Läckberg on his neck tattooed, yeah, it's been quite a surprise to me, but I do get a lot of appreciation from male readers for the books. And I had a very endearing, in my third Fjällbacka book, I talk about my main character gets postnatal depression. I had that with my third child, so I kind of wrote about it, and we all put our own shit in the books, as writers, we all put everything personal in there. So I wrote about that, and I received a handwritten letter from a reader, a man who was over 90 years old. And he wrote to me and said that when my wife had postnatal depression, when she had our first child, and we were talking, 65 years ago, he said, I didn't understand. By reading your book, I for the first time fully understand what you went through. And I want to thank you for that. And that was that was one of the most fantastic. I mean, I got this 12 years ago. I've never forgotten it.
¿Eso ha cambiado tu visión como escritora? Es decir, acabas de decir que escribías desde una perspectiva femenina y para lectoras. ¿Eso ha cambiado ahora cómo escribes? ¿También estás pensando en los lectores o no necesariamente?
I'm very selfish when I write. I only write the kind of books that I want to read. And I think that I write very much from my reality and my perspective. And my, for example, I'm not really comfortable with calling myself a feminist because there are a lot of women who are feminists who I don't agree with. We don't see things the same way. I don't think that the idea of, okay, guys, now you have ruled the world for 2000 years. Now it's our turn to rule the world and you can sit back. I believe that true equality is when it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't mean that men are, need to get flogged now for a couple of 100 years. So I'm not that kind of feminist. I have a lot of fantastic men in my life. I mean, I've married 3 of them, and and I have a lot of male friends, and I see a lot of fantastic examples of men who are fantastic husbands, fathers, very equal. So I'm not, far out. I try to keep a very sound perspective, but of course, as a woman, it's the majority is a female perspective. But I very much enjoy, since I often in my books change the view of the character, and I write from both male and female characters' point of view. And I enjoy that very much because that makes me have to really think about it. Okay, what would a guy think in this situation? How would he react in this situation? And that creates a greater understanding. And that's a key to equality, that we start actually understanding the other person.
Claro, la literatura nos tiene que ayudar a ponernos en los zapatos de la víctima, del hombre o de la mujer, y así nos podemos entender un poco mejor. ¿Qué haces una vez que terminas una novela? ¿Se las das a leer a amigos, amigas? ¿Quién te lee antes que nadie, antes que los lectores, por supuesto?
No, it's my editor, because I want, before I start giving the manuscript to friends or family, I want it to go through the first editing, because they actually often have very good ideas. And you need to wash the manuscript. But after the first washing, I give it to my husband. So he's the first reader. But he's dyslexic, so it takes him so long to read it. And I'm like, oh, come on, read faster, come on.
¿Y también tiene ideas? ¿Has cambiado cosas que te han señalado tus lectores no editores?
Well, no, the thing is that I give that exclusive right to my editor. I get very, very annoyed when someone tries to give me ideas while I'm working at the manuscript or when it's just finished. Only my editor gets away with that. And as I said, I've been married 3 times, and I've had to teach my husbands how to deal with this, because the first time I start talking about the story with them while I'm working on a manuscript, they are of the misperception that I actually want their advice. And then I have to tell them that no, you only say one thing, and that's wonderful here. Yeah. Fantastic. Sounds amazing. That's your only job.
¿Alguien en alguna firma de libros, algún lector se ha acercado a decirte, oh, yo conozco un crimen maravilloso que deberías escribir o del cual deberías informarte, o me gustaría quizás cometer un crimen yo mismo, me gustaría contarte? ¿Cuál ha sido la cosa más extraña que te han dicho al respecto en alguna firma de libros?
Oh, apart from the guy with the my name tattoo on his neck?
Yes.
Well, I do constantly get people who wants to give me their ideas, and that happens not only in signings but through direct message by Insta, or they email me and say, I've got this great story, you can have it, Or the most common thing is I said that, oh, I've lived such a marvelous life. You can get to write the book about my life. And then we can share the proceeds, you know. I get a couple of those per week. No, but you know, in the signing line, anything can happen. Everything from I've been tried to being picked up by giving phone numbers to being scolded for something I wrote, or anything can happen.
Claro. Han llamado, no sé, productores de tele, de cine para Mujeres que no perdonan. Es tan ágil, tan clara, tan precisa lo que ocurre, que sería fantástico.
It's always hard to talk about the discussions you have about movies
Okay.
and books. But I've actually just gotten into the movie world myself. I've started a movie production company, and we are just now producing our first full feature movie. So I'm deep into that work at the moment.
¿Y tiene que ver con alguna obra tuya? ¿Con alguna novela tuya?
No, it's an original manuscript. It's a pandemic story, a love story in quarantine. So it's something different. No one is murdered.
Qué lástima. Ahora justo con la pandemia, ¿te ha dado, has planeado alguna nueva novela que tenga que ver con crimen en un espacio cerrado, en un espacio tan asfixiante como la pandemia?
Well, no, not apart from this movie, but I've been working on another movie, another book project. I'm writing a trilogy together with a colleague of mine and a very good friend of mine, Henrik Fixeus. So we have just finished the first book in a trilogy, and it's called The Box. It's a crime story. It's a mentalist and a female cop that solves crimes. In the first book, it's magic tricks gone wrong.
Las mujeres policías y los investigadores tienen mucho éxito en los países, digamos, más desarrollados, porque en nuestros países no confiamos tanto en la policía. ¿Crees que la figura del detective aún tenga ese atractivo de confianza?
I do think so, but as you said, it is different from country to country. But I've actually been quite successful in Latin America. So I don't know if that's because it's starting to change, or if it's just this fascination with this weird country up north where polar bears are walking the streets. But I've gotten a lot of love from Latin and Central America, and I very much enjoy that. I once asked a Spanish journalist who's interviewed me several times, and I also know she's a fan of the books. So she's read all of them, and she's very, you know, she knows a lot about them. And I once asked her a couple of years ago, like, what's your fascination with these books? Because it seems like a very different society from, you know, your Madrid life and little Fjällbacka and this small Swedish town. And she said that, well, my fascination is that I come from a very small Spanish town, and I recognize life so much in this small Swedish town. And that's fascinating to me, that we are so alike. I did not think that. And that was a key to me to understanding that I think I found something that is human, not national, when I write.
Claro, incluso estas mujeres son, digamos, tienen estas vidas muy contemporáneas. Una maestra de escuela, una periodista, quizás la única que tiene una vida un poco más rara es esta mujer rusa que tiene que entrar a un país extranjero, y quizás es la que está más violentada, en el sentido de que no, apenas si conoce el idioma. Supongo que salir a la calle debe ser un conflicto. Lo vemos en una de las escenas donde tiene que comprar cosas. Ese aislamiento tanto del territorio, en el caso del pueblecito, como una suerte como de aislamiento mental, le permite a los personajes actuar con revancha,
Yeah.
con violencia.
Yes, I think always when you feel powerless, as we have spoken before, and imagine coming to a country, you have no friends, you have no family, you don't speak the language, you're so much in power of this person who you're with, and it's not that uncommon in Sweden. It's quite a phenomenon with Russian mail order brides or wives from Thailand. There, of course, there are couples that are very, not that way. There are, fairy tale stories as well, but it is a problem because you have a very unequal level of power in that relationship.
Claro. Sin embargo, hay un personaje también muy interesante que es otra mujer, que es esta tailandesa que también está casada, digamos, con esta misma relación de abuso y nos la presentas como que como un espejo de que también hay gente que se acomoda a esa vida o como el espejo para Victoria de que no debe acomodarse a esa vida.
Yes, it's a mirror to show both sides. That, I mean, it's always a choice often to fight it or accept it, and especially if you have children, it's even more difficult because what are your rights going to be? You're in this foreign country, you don't even know the rules. So I kind of wanted to show both sides there.
Y esos dos, no, lo que pasa es que nos dejas la posibilidad de que también aceptemos un poco esta violencia y es un poco triste este personaje que se adapta demasiado a sus propias condiciones, ¿no?
Yeah, everything, and that's a strange thing. Everything becomes normal after a while. That's also why you see the bad patterns repeating. Someone who's grown up with an alcoholic father is very prone to seeking an alcoholic spouse because it's normal. It's something and the better the devil you know than the one you don't. So because humans are so adaptable, it's our strength, but it's also our weakness that we can adapt to so much. And especially wives and children, mothers and children, they can, take a lot for the sake of their children. It's a strength, but sometimes it's also a prison.
Y sin embargo, la periodista que me parece que es uno de los personajes centrales, que es la que arma quizás la trama de los asesinatos, tiene hijos. ¿Cómo lo resuelve?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
¿Cómo resuelve este
That's a
conflicto
conflict also.
Ah,
And also to how do you hurt your children by telling the truth about their father? As women, we go to great lengths to protect our children, and sometimes at the cost of ourselves. So I can understand that's a difficult line to draw in the sand. It's not an easy decision. A lot of people would like to make it an easy decision. It's not. It's complex.
claro. Y quizás ahí esa complejidad la vemos en Brigitta, que a pesar de que sus hijos son mayores, están fuera de casa, todavía siente necesidad de protegerlos de esta verdad.
Yep.
Es uno de los personajes más tiernos, no solo porque está enferma, sino porque trata de liberarse hacia el último
Yeah.
fragmento, cacho de su existencia. ¿Cómo concebiste ese personaje?
Yeah. I saw her as, really quite strong, but that she had chosen not to be that for many, many years. One of the women that were gradually broken down and choosing to live for the children instead. Her channel was the children. That was her mission. And that mission just doesn't stop because when the children gets old or move away from home, you don't stop being a mother when the children leave your house. And I think that was a very important point to make for me with Birgitte, that the bond is just as strong, the responsibility is just as strong. And there's also an amount of shame involved. Women often feel shame, even though they are not the ones doing anything, but they take the shame upon themselves.
¿Hay algo que tus lectores esperan ya de las novelas de Camilla Läckberg? Estamos esperando algo y eso te hace sentir comprometido como escritor o no necesariamente escribes con la mayor libertad?
Well, as I said, I'm very selfish when I write. And the last few years, I've done a few projects that I've been to. I mean, I've had my Fjällbacka series, which has been hugely successful and been at like base of my writer's career. But after 10 books, I felt that I want to tell another story. I started working on this story. I started working on The Golden Cage. Everyone around me told me I was crazy. I mean, I had a very successful series already going. Why change it into something else? But that's the point of being a creative person, that you always have to do what you want to. You have to be very selfish and only write what you want to. I don't really care about what the readers want. I love my readers, but I don't care what they want from me. I give them something and I hope they love it.
Eso te permite, es decir, ¿hasta qué punto eres capaz de cambiar de una novela a otra? Sabes que hay cosas que te gusta decir, sabes que hay cosas que te gusta señalar sobre la sociedad, sobre el mundo criminal, y hasta qué punto tú dices, esto ya no, esto lo voy a cambiar radicalmente para llevarlo a otro grado. ¿Hasta dónde has llegado? ¿Hasta dónde sientes que has llegado en estos cambios?
Well, I usually get an idea, and that idea is quite clear to me what I want to do. So I just kind of go and run with that idea. And sometimes I have to also work on changing my language a bit. Some stories needs a different kind of language. This story needed a little bit of different language than the Fjällbacka stories. The Faye books requires another kind of change in the voice. So that always takes me a little while when I start on a new project, that I think about it quite a long time because I have to find the perfect voice for that story.
Está armado muy bonito porque es una tras otra de los personajes. Cada capítulo es lo que va ocurriéndole a los personajes y eso siempre da la sensación, por un lado, de velocidad. La trama va corriendo bastante rápido, pero también de muchas posibilidades. Uno siente que está permeando el mundo. ¿Así lo planeaste? Que a la hora que armaste, no la trama, sino realmente el armado del libro?
Yeah, that idea came together with the idea for the book. That was the structure came at the same time as the idea. So I knew that's the way I wanted to tell this story. So that was kind of the voice of that book. And that's one of the things about how I view being an author, being a writer, that I never want to stop evolving. If I want to keep learning and growing and developing as a writer, I have to do things that I'm not quite sure how to do. I could keep writing Fjällbacka books for the rest of my life, but that's very much in my comfort zone. I can step in and out of that world just like that. I know the voice, I know the characters. It's a lot of work, but it's easy. And I'm not afraid anymore. I know it works. I'm very comfortable. With these other projects, mixing them in, I get the little butterflies in my stomach, and I'm a little bit afraid that, will the readers like this? Will they hate it? Will this flunk? And I kind of enjoy feeling that keeps me on my toes.
Dices, sé lo que funciona, y eso me gusta mucho porque me permite hacerte una pregunta. Alguna vez entrevisté a una escritora española y me dijo, sé que no puedo escribir un buen cuento, sé que el cuento no es mi género, sé que la novela es mi género, ahí me voy a quedar, no que escriba siempre lo mismo, pero que sea la novela el género en el que yo me siento confortable. ¿En dónde no te sientes confortable? ¿Has intentado alguna vez escribir teatro, cuento, y has sentido que no eres Camilla Läckberg.
Well, very comfortable in one thing, and that's I see myself as a storyteller above all. And I know I'm a good storyteller. I might not be the most literary writer. I mean, I will never get the phone call in the middle of the night telling me I won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Um, I'm not that kind of writer, and I don't aspire to be. I'm very proud of being read by many people. I'm proud of being easily accessible, or being part of more the pop culture than the fine culture. In Sweden, we have it's a big division between the broad culture and the fine culture. And it's kind of looked down on what I do. And we kind of have this saying that in the fine culture world, they kind of think that if a lot of people read your book, it can't be good. So if you have few writers, then it's probably a very fine and good literature book. Weird. I know, it's weird. But it's never bothered me. I'm proud of being the people's writer.
Eso me encanta porque es algo que parece como prohibido decir incluso, ¿no? Ah, claro, es que gusten mis libros, que
Yeah.
se vendan, que tengan éxito, parece una suerte como de venganza del comercio o de la edición que de la literatura realmente, ¿no? Y tú lo llevas muy bien, tú lo cuentas con toda facilidad. Es decir, has aprendido a ver así la literatura y has aprendido a que esa es tu literatura.
I don't think I've learned it. I think it's always been quite natural to me, also because I know I've always been an avid book reader. When I was a child, I was constantly reading, had my nose in a book, and I've read everything from Gabriel Garcia Marquez to Jackie Collins. I've never to Barbara Cartland. I've never viewed anything as bad literature. I mean, one day you want to read Dostoevsky, the other day you want to read some chick lit book. It depends on my mood. And why should I pick just one kind of literature to read? I mean, it's stupid. I mean, it's actually stupid. So I've never had a problem with that. And I've always been very proud of being read by many. And I also think that the writers who says that they'd rather have few and the right readers than many, I think they're lying. I think everyone wants to be read by a lot of people. That's why we write, to be read.
Claro. Háblame justo de tus preferencias literarias. Ahorita acabas de mencionar muchos, pero ¿qué te gusta leer? ¿Qué le gusta leer a Camilla Läckberg?
I've always read about 80% crime and 20% a total mix of everything from Nobel Prize winners to chick lit. But I've always been a huge crime fan. It started with Agatha Christie, and I also include horror fiction. That's Stephen King, for example. I love. And I've always been drawn more to the Anglo-Saxon tradition than the American one, with one exception, Michael Connelly. But otherwise, I read a lot of English crime writers, Peter Robinson, for example, Scottish Dennis Mina, etc. Reginald Hill.
Hay muchas mujeres que han destacado en la novela negra, en la novela criminal. ¿A qué lo atribuyes? ¿Crees que hay alguna razón? Me estoy refiriendo a Agatha Christie, me estoy refiriendo a Patricia Highsmith y desde luego a Camilla Läckberg.
I don't know. I think maybe Agatha Christie started something when she became successful, and she was among the first women who were successful in that field. So I think that maybe we have her to thank for women thinking that, oh, I could actually do that. I also think we have a keen eye for human nature, and crime writing is about human nature. It's all about human nature. Because we're so interested in relationships, and that's where it always goes wrong, in the interaction between humans.
Dices, tiene que ver con las relaciones interpersonales, pero también te importa mucho el poder. Lo has mencionado mucho a lo largo de la charla y de la entrevista. ¿Ese es uno de los elementos clave toda novela, de toda novela negra?
Absolutely. I think power is key in all stories when people are involved because we're all playing a power game all day long. We're doing it at home, we're doing it at work, we're doing it in politics, we're doing it in interaction with friends. I mean, as I've said before, we're basically still Stone Age people, and we're competing about being the alpha males or the woman who decides in the village. Um, that's our way to be secure, to be the one who have power. That's a way that we're not excluded from the group, because historically, if you're excluded from the group, the tiger will come and get you.
Claro. Naturaleza humana, poder. Esas cosas nunca se van a terminar. Eso quiere decir que los crímenes nunca se van a terminar y las novelas criminales tampoco.
Yeah.
Vamos a tener Camilla Läckberg para mucho tiempo.
I hope so. I'm taking my vitamins every day. No, but I'll always write in some form. I do not know in what form. I mean, I'm doing movie scripts now. I've done song lyrics, short novels, long stories. So I children's books, cookbooks. I dabble in like every kind of writing, because to me, I'm a writer. That's what I do. I'm not a novelist. I'm a writer. I like to tell a story.
Nunca hubiera imaginado lo de las canciones. ¿Alguien las ha retomado? ¿Las podemos conseguir en Spotify? ¿Alguien las canta?
Yeah, there are some on Spotify. Some of them in Swedish, but some of them in English.
Las buscaremos inmediatamente. Y tampoco hubiera imaginado lo de los libros infantiles. ¿Hay crímenes en los libros para niños?
No, but it's a superhero. I just released the 10th in a series, actually, Super Charlie. So they begin quite successful.
¿Cuál es la diferencia? ¿Cómo abordas cómo escribes para niños y la diferencia entre escribir crímenes para adultos?
Oh, it's much harder writing for children. They're a tough crowd, let me tell you. I mean, they're the toughest critics. If a kid don't like it, it's pretty obvious. So I think it's quite difficult to write for children, but it's also a ton of fun.
¿Has visto cómo han recibido tus libros infantiles?
Yes, I mean, I always try them out on my 4 children. I have quite a nice jury selection, and I do, and I do get a lot of reactions from parents, school teachers who are sending me, reports on the children. And I sometimes have children coming up and want my autograph because I'm Super Charlie's mom. So.
Qué maravilla. Invítanos a leer Mujeres que no perdonan, Camila.
I have to say that, do you know that in Sweden, we have a tradition on Fridays? In Sweden, I mean, basically everyone is eating tacos on Fridays, and we call it Taco Friday. Really, I'm not joking. It's a Swedish thing. Like most Swedish families eat tacos on Fridays, and it's Taco Friday.
Entonces viene muy bien el Taco Friday leyendo a Camilla Läckberg.
Yeah, perfect.
Camila, te agradecemos muchísimo la charla, te agradecemos muchísimo tu sentido del humor y esperamos tener pronto un nuevo libro en español de Camilla Läckberg.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Amigos, muchas gracias por acompañarnos, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en esta charla con Camilla Läckberg, gracias al Grupo Editorial Planeta y desde luego a la FIL de Guadalajara. Muchas gracias.